Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me get that speech out of the way. Has anybody talked about serendipity yet? No? Oh, shoot, I can't do that. Well, thank you. I am so honored to be here. Distinguished faculty, Harvard students, parents, class 2023. I'd like to start off by saying, and I mean this with all respect, what up, 2023? What up? 2023. It's not gang symbols, it's 2023. Pretty good. No, I'm truly honored to be here. Actually, I was a bit shocked when I was asked. I was like, did somebody cancel? Like, how did I get asked? But sure enough, I asked this very impressive group of students behind me. They said, no, Larry, you were our first choice. You were our only choice. I was like, really, you guys? They were like, yeah, Larry, we love you. And I'm like, I love you too, you guys. We all hugged and took a picture. It's going on the Dean's Instagram. It was all good. It was all good. And as a side note, I should say that as a member of the Writers Guild of America, I'm actually on strike right now. So yeah, it's a little awkward. I know. Yeah. I know. If anybody wants to chant, pay those writers, that's okay. That's okay. I'm not really supposed to be writing speeches, but I'm like, hey man, this is Harvard. A silly strike isn't going to keep me from this honor, right? That's right. And a big shout out to my boy ChatGPT-4 for helping a brother out. Yeah. Give it up for AI, you guys. Yeah. Actually, that's not true. I've never used ChatGPT-4. I've used the black version, ChatGPT-4. Have you guys heard about that? Yeah. Oh, it's very helpful, very helpful. ChatGPT-4, are white people invited to the cookout? Traditionally, white people have not been allowed at the cookout. Thanks, ChatGPT-4. I appreciate that. All the black people watching this on YouTube will get that joke. Thank you very much. And since you guys brought up race, how about a hand for your incoming new leader, Claudine Gay, Harvard's first black female president, you guys. Yeah. That's right. Whoa. Man. Harvard. Oh, my God. Good for you, Harvard. Look at you, Harvard, erasing that legacy of slavery, one black president at a time. I see you. I see you, Harvard. Well done. Well done. But in seriousness, so I've been doing a lot of careful thinking about what I should share with you, as well as a healthy amount of last-minute panic-stricken procrastination-induced, quickly cobbled together words of wisdom, which you guys are familiar as students working like that. I like the balance of those two dynamics, but if I can give you an overall view first, there's two things I'd like you to take away from this afternoon, okay? Number one, this is very important. Do everything I'm about to tell you. Don't think about it, just do it. Trust me, you'll be happy you did, all right? Okay. Number two, don't do anything anybody tells you to do, including me. At the end of the day, believe your own judgment, you'll be glad you did. There you have it. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. That's supposed to be. No, seriously, I've had many people and many things that have helped me along the way in life, and I'll share some of my favorites. Because people always ask me those questions. Larry, what guided you? You know, what are the things that you have gone by? And some of it you may find helpful, some not. Some of it's kind of funny, and some of it, you know, is kind of philosophical in some ways. But hopefully there'll be something in here for everybody. Now, one of the first things I came up with, kind of as a guide, and I came up with this years ago, you guys. I didn't actually make it up. These sayings were already out there, but I put them together in an interesting way as a kind of philosophy, you know. And these are not some how to be successful tips, you know, far from me to come to Harvard to tell you how to be successful. But these are more like for times when you feel stuck, you know, or you're in a rut. Because most of the time in our lives, we're looking for information, right? I mean, it's why Google makes billions of dollars. But many times what we really need is clarity or peace, right? So these are sayings I've used to calm me down when my brain gets a little too cluttered or I'm a little too overwhelmed. And here it is, 3 things, okay? The first covers a good 95% of every situation. It is what it is. 95%, you guys, I'm telling you, it is true. It sounds silly, but whatever situation leaves you vexed, it is what it is, 95%. Well, how come nobody? It is what it is. Well, I don't understand why the world, it is what it is. Well, why isn't it this way? It is what it is. But how can anybody vote for Trump? It is what it is. Now the second, thank you very much. The second covers about 4% after the 95%. And it's for those times when you feel a bit flummoxed, right? And you're unsure about your course of action, okay? I love this one. This is my favorite. Do what you got to do. Right? I know it sounds simple. I'm telling you guys, this fills so many gaps. But how do I do what you got to do? But what if I have to do what you got to do? But my job wants me to move. Do what you got to do. But I got kids. What if I have to do what you got to do? My parents paid a lot for my education. I just want to hang out and get high. Do what you got to do. Do what you got to do isn't necessarily productive, by the way. Not all the time. It is what it is. Do what you got to do, okay? Now, the third pearl of pseudo-wisdom covers the 1% that's left, okay? It's for when you're trying to take it to the next level or, see some kind of improvement in your life or just unsatisfied with where you're heading, all right? Play better. It is what it is. Do what you got to do. Play better. I got to find a way to make more money. Play better. I can't seem to hold on to a relationship, but play better. Man, show business is so hard. How do I break in? Play better. Or be in better plays. Either of those work, actually. I love play better, you guys. Play better forces you to put the attention on yourself and to put your destiny in your own hands. Because so many times we feel, especially as young people, that the forces that control everything are against us, right? That the system is rigged, that the man is always going to try to keep a brother down. Well, that one is true. Actually, we can barely barbecue in a park these days, right? But even if all these things are true, there's no better way to give you a shot at whatever your target is than focusing on your own improvement. And it's funny, because this credo is always used in sports, and nobody ever questions it, right? What do the Lakers have to do to beat the Nuggets? Play better. I wrote that one the other day. So now they've lost, and I'm sad. But it's funny, rarely do we apply this simple logic to our own life circumstances, right? It's okay to do it in sports, but we rarely do it for ourselves. And it's amazing how many of us don't take the time to really think about our lives in a way where we have control over our own destiny. Many of us just fall into something that seems like the right thing at the time, and then years later say, how the hell did I get here? And the fact is that most people spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they do planning their lives. It is what it is. Do what you got to do. Play better. Now, I know this sounds simple, but there have been many really rough times in my own life when I've had doubts about so many things, thought about quitting, etc., things like that. Just sitting at home feeling sorry for myself. Why? Why is this happening to me? And then it is what it is would just pop into my head. I would laugh and I would just keep going. Now, one of the questions that many of you may face in the coming years is figuring out what you're going to do with your life, right? Do I try to make a lot of money, or should I find something meaningful? Do I want to be my own boss, or do I want to work for somebody? Do I want to do what feels safe, or do I want to take a risk? Well, these aren't easy answers. There aren't easy answers to any of these because it's hard to get clarity about your life when you're young. It's just difficult. And I struggled with these myself. And then I was lucky enough to go through an experience while in college that helped to give me some direction in my life. I actually wrote a short essay about it a couple of years ago for a special event. But if you'll indulge me, I'll share it with you here, okay? All right, it's called Why I Haven't Worked in 30 Years. This is it. I always have to act like I'm in an improv class. And here it is. I'm sorry, we can't afford it. I know what you mean. In fact, the Kenny Brews down the street were saying the same thing, but once they took a look at all the volume library had to offer in one book and weighed that against how important education is to them for their children, they told me they couldn't afford not to get it. I would love to show you a few of the things that changed their minds. Do you have a place where we can sit down? Sure, come in. An answer to an objection. This is the term for one of the many memorized responses I learned to sell books door to door along with dozens of other college students who made the same trip to Knoxville, Tennessee in the summer of '82. It was the summer before my final year in school, and it was also the summer when I decided to never work for a living. There are many things I wanted to do and be when I was a kid. They included astronaut, athlete, scientist, magician, clergyman, comedian, teacher, psychologist, actor. It was normal for me to spend my free time working on a math puzzle or a basketball move and a magic trick in like the same afternoon. But whenever I thought seriously about what I wanted to do for a living, my mind always divided my future into two possible roads, the practical and the dream. Now, as a product of a broken family, and as a result of having spent my formative years with 5 siblings and a single mom at the edges of poverty, it felt irresponsible of me not to think practically, right? And as much as I was tempted to try life in showbiz, my ears were always filled with get your education, get a good job, play by the rules. So the thought of following my dreams and becoming a comedian filled this Catholic school-raised kid with legacy guilt. But I remember one clarifying moment I had as a teen when my brother and I looked up at our ceiling one day and saw a hole looking back at us, realizing that our roof had literally caved in. We looked at each other and vowed that would never happen to us in our adult life. And the question I formed early on in my life was not where I was going to end up, but how. By the summer of '82, I was in my 3rd year in college, theater major, feeling directionless and not confident at all. I felt like I was possibly throwing away an important time in my life, chasing a foolish dream and not listening to the well-meaning people around me who continually reminded me to have something I can fall back on. My response to that had always been that I didn't view my life as a series of fallbacks, but as a series of leap forwards. And even though I always delivered that line with a confident smile and smirk, lurking underneath was terror and unease. And one day before the end of the school year, I was wandering aimlessly through the halls when I came upon an ad that promised thousands of dollars to students who were willing to spend their summer selling books door to door in another part of the country. I was desperate in need of money and an escape, and thought that I might be able to make enough to even buy a car. Like the Southwest Airlines ad that says, "Want to get away?" I did and signed up. I feel healthy, I feel happy, I feel terrific. That was the battle cry we were taught to say every morning before we went out to sell books. It was one of the many scripted ploys we were given as budding young salespeople about to be unleashed into the world. And students from all over the country were gathered together for a week in Knoxville to learn all the tricks and patter you need to convince Mr. and Mrs. Johnson's checkbook to buy some books from you, even though their faces kept telling you no. It was an exhilarating time. Every morning we would gather together in a hotel conference room and hear inspirational speeches, pep talks, survival strategies, play out possible scenarios. And at the end of the week, we were told which part of the country we would be selling books. I was going to Rhode Island, and man, I really couldn't wait. As a theater major, it was easy for me to memorize all the stiff greetings and answers to objections we were given. And if Mr. and Mrs. Johnson thought they were going to resist my memorized charms, they were mistaken. I was going to crush this. I felt healthy. I felt happy. I felt terrific. I felt horrible. I was terrible at selling books. Nothing I did seemed to work very well. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson did not care about my answers to their objections. They said no, and they meant it. Within a week, I was devastated. My goal was to try and sell 6 books a day, but 3, like at the absolute minimum. I'm not sure if I sold 2 books for the entire week. After a month, it wasn't much better. All of my hopes and dreams of making enough money to buy a car were slipping away faster than common sense at a Trump rally. I'll wait a little on that one. That's okay. No, it's okay. No matter how much healthy, happy, terrific my mornings, by the afternoons, I felt ready to give up. One day, while riding my bike through an intersection in Fall River, I was sideswiped by a car and was sent flying to the sidewalk. I sat stunned for a few minutes, not quite believing what had happened. Amazingly, I wasn't hurt. I told the distraught driver I was okay and slowly climbed back on my bike, feeling dazed and disoriented. Within minutes, I was crying uncontrollably. What was I doing here? I hated selling books. I hated Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. I wanted to go home. And for some reason, I talked myself into staying. I think it was a combination of hearing the sympathetic, supportive, but somewhat disappointed tone in my mom's voice as I told her my plans in between my sobs, and the cold realization that I was about to quit and give up, something my ultra-competitive athletic side would never have dreamed of doing. I had never given up on anything in my life. So I sucked it up and literally climbed back onto my bike and kept going. And it's funny, but there's something about honestly admitting defeat that kind of frees you up. I still hated selling books, but I no longer let that stop me from knocking on doors. The rest of the summer was a somewhat surreal combination of experiencing the frustration of not being very good at sales, the exhilaration of the freedom of accepting that, but enjoying my time anyway, and the fascination of spending time with strangers in their own living rooms. I met so many incredible people that summer in various degrees of struggle and success, and focusing on them really helped me take the attention off of myself and any pity that tried to creep into my bones, right? There was one family in particular who had such a profound effect on me that I still think about them from time to time. It was towards the end of the summer, and I was in a particularly poor section of Fall River, Mass. There are many first-generation Portuguese families in this area, many of whom did not speak much English, and I was struggling to get people to even listen to my entire pitch, right? So about to pack it in one day, I instead climbed up some stairs to one last door. I said my pitch, and to my surprise, the gentle-seeming man let me in and led me to his living room. Oh man, I was so excited. I hadn't been in the living room all day, and I tore into my pitch, right? And as I was talking, he was joined by his wife and their 3 small children. I really hammed it up for the kids, who literally grabbed the colorful children's books that were part of the collection right from my hands. Man, sensing victory and happy that I might end my day in a great sale, I went right into the close. And although the father's English was spare, as soon as I mentioned how much it would cost, I could see his face completely understood the price. And in a poignant, silent moment, I looked into his disappointed eyes and immediately knew that he really couldn't afford these books. So I dispensed with any rote answers to objections, not wanting to damage his pride, thanked him politely, and got up to leave. As I was walking to the door, I noticed there was not one book in the house. I was really struck by this sight. And the air of excitement that had filled the room moments before, it now took on a different meaning. I tried giving the dad my samples. We took orders and delivered the books at the end of the summer, but his pride wouldn't allow it, and so I left. I cried all the way home. I cried a lot that summer. I spent a lot of time in many homes that summer, and the overwhelming recurring theme I noticed was how many people seemed unhappy with their lives. Maybe it was their choice of job, choice of spouse, or just a general unease about the future, but it was unmistakable. I vowed to myself that I would choose happiness and fulfillment above all else in my life's direction. I knew it didn't matter how much money I made, how much status I had, or what kind of things I could accumulate. I had to pour myself into doing something meaningful, or there was no point. So, thank you. Thank you very much. So, I like partial clapping. That's great. Thank you, guys. I decided to choose a path for myself, and whatever I did for a living was the physical manifestation of walking down that path. I remember saying to myself, I'm never going to work again, I'm only going to walk. In the last few days of the summer were spent delivering the book orders to the families whose objections were somehow melted by my answers. There weren't a lot of deliveries, and I didn't make enough money to buy that car I wanted, but I felt good. On the last day, I carried one extra set of books I had ordered up a set of stairs and laid them down quietly on the welcome mat at the front door. Luckily, no one was home. And I stealthily tiptoed down the stairs and got out of there, hoping I wouldn't run into anybody. As I rode away on my bike, I couldn't stop smiling, imagining how excited those 3 kids were going to be when they got home. So I want to repeat a phrase. That's the essay. Thank you very much. I want to repeat. Thank you. It's kind of a rolling applause now, right? It's kind of rolling, like it starts here and then it rolls. No. I want to repeat a phrase from that essay, you guys. I decided to choose a path for myself, and whatever I did for a living was the physical manifestation of walking down that path. Because sometimes people will ask me, when did I consider myself a success? And I tell them, the minute I decided to follow my life's passion. Success wasn't a destination, it was a journey. That's what the path is. That's why I say I haven't worked in 30 years, because when you choose a path for yourself, it never feels like work, only a walk. One of the biggest obstacles you'll face in the years ahead is fear, okay? Fear can be so destructive in our lives. On a global scale, fear is at the root of war, it's at the root of hatred, of bigotry, of division, and some of the ugliest human movements. On a personal scale, fear is usually the culprit that prevents us from doing the things in life that we are meant to do but are afraid for whatever reason. And fear can come from anywhere. It can come from your parents who mean well. It can come from friends who think they're being supportive. It can come from the culture. It can definitely come from haters. Haters love throwing fear at you, right? But the most paralyzing type of fear always starts inside of us. Here's what fear does to your life, okay? I want you to remember this. Fear wants you to be a prisoner of your past and a terrorist of your future. Okay? I'll say it again. Fear wants you to be a prisoner of your past and a terrorist of your future. Class of 2023, I want you to be fearless in your lives. I want you to do the things you never imagined you could do. I want you to be the people you always knew you should be. I want you to create the world that we all wish it could be. And I want you to have all the happiness you were absolutely intended to have. Class of 2023, I want you to be fearless, okay? And while you're being fearless, I want you to try to remember this. Don't let your feelings bring you down, okay? You cannot rely on how you feel about something at any particular time to get you through life. Could you imagine if you had relied on your feelings to get your degree? You never would have shown up to class. Focus your life on what your action should be and where you need to show up, okay? No matter what happens, keep showing up, okay? They won't tell you this, but there were many times when your parents did not feel like parenting, okay? You were very low on their list of things they were enthused about. All the parents are laughing right now because they know that's true. But it didn't matter how they felt. They showed up, okay? Show up in your own life the way your parents showed up for you. I wish I had known the value of showing up for yourself during my school years. I was always a really smart kid growing up. The other kids used to call me the professor, right? Because it seemed like I had the answer for everything. I was always the teacher's pet. It was terrible. But I loved it, you know. I can remember in the 3rd grade, I would finish my math test so quickly that the teacher would let me correct the other students' tests. I know, I hate me too, you guys. But I always prided myself on not only getting good grades, but being one of the best, you know? And it was never a competition with other students. It was always a competition with myself. I was one of the top students in my 8th grade class and got a scholarship to go to Catholic high school. But when I got to high school, things changed a bit. I always felt different, but that difference was magnified here. It was mostly a middle class to upper middle class student body, but everybody seemed rich to me, you know. My parents were divorced and my mom was raising 6 kids the best she could. We had zero money. When you've had tuna helper for Christmas, it's hard to relate to somebody's ski vacation over winter break, right? And I was also one of the few black students at a predominantly white school, and I lived in a predominantly black neighborhood. So I never felt like I fully belonged in either. Like white kids would make fun of me for being black, and then black kids would make fun of me for not being black enough, right? Like I remember I used to get teased for not talking black, and I used to think, well, that doesn't make sense because I'm black and I'm talking, ergo. And even though I got involved in many things at school, I've never felt like I truly fit in. I used to say about school, I feel like I'm at a family reunion, but I'm not in the family. My home life was not any better. The emotional toll on my mom in those days was pretty bad. And looking back now, I can see she probably had a nervous breakdown and some depression. People didn't talk about it that much in those days. And I was frustrated because there was nothing I could do, and it always just made me feel a bit powerless. You know, my schoolwork started slipping in my sophomore year, and by the time I was a senior, I barely had the grades to graduate. I just couldn't focus on studying. I chose every opportunity to escape into sports or theater or just making my friends laugh. In fact, I'll share this with you guys. If not for the generosity of my history teacher who allowed me to entertain the class, true story, for my final so I wouldn't get an F, I'm not sure I would have even graduated, as hard as that is to believe. He was really an angel when I look back. Here's the thing. I was fully aware of my potential, but I was so afraid in those days. Afraid to be myself. Afraid to be authentic. Afraid of the truth. Afraid of the future. Just afraid. Fear and shame. Fear was keeping me a prisoner of the past, and shame was terrorizing my future. I dealt with those feelings in college, but there was something about knocking on doors that summer in Rhode Island, regardless of my fears, that taught me so much. And seeing how much alike most people were, even with the most striking surface differences. I've never let fear and shame guide me since that time. They still pop up now and then, but when they do, I just look at them and say, sorry, not interested. Like so many of my non-buying book customers. I want to thank you guys for inviting me here today and indulging me with these anecdotes from my past and attempts at advice. And I'd like to leave you with one last thing to keep in mind when you're on your journey, okay? Don't just look at your life's work in terms of what you can get out of it. Instead, approach it in terms of what you can put into it. Make a contribution in everything you do. Pour your passion, love, desire, integrity, intelligence, and generosity of spirit into a world that desperately needs it. The world is a hostile place, class of 2023. It is what it is. It almost takes all of your energy just to stay sane from all the crap. Do what you got to do. But know that whatever your authentic self is, whatever it is that makes you different, makes you stand out, whatever might make you the object of ridicule from others or cause fear and shame from you, embrace that, okay? That uniqueness is gold. Take that, throw it into the world, and know that as of right now, class of 2023, you are already a success. Success is not in your future, guys. It is a present condition. All you have to do now, get on your path, walk that walk, always keep it 100% real, wave to the haters, acknowledge your obstacles, sorry, not interested, and let your life not just be an example for others to follow, but an inspiration to fill people's hearts of a life well lived. Play better. Thank you very much. Congrats to the class of 23.